control escapes now, okay? There's a couple of general directions my partner can start to move in. There's different hand positions, different body positions, but our main goal is going to be to incrementally fight limbs back to the inside position, and get to a situation where we're not carrying our partner's body weight on our torso, but we have frames inside, and we can bring everything back to the inside position and reguard, and then go into counterattacks. All right. The main things we're going to be looking at today is escapes where we start by turning towards our partner, and escapes where we start by turning away from our partner. And this will be contingent upon my partner's body position. If my partner crowds my head with her upper body like so, now it's going to be the time to start turning towards my partner and inserting knees or punching in underhooks and coming into attacks my partner's legs and things like that. In the event that my partner crowds my hips and points my knees away from her, now I won't be able to turn towards her because of the orientation of her body. So now I'll start with escapes that start pointing away from me first, where I start to go in and go into escapes where I initially start by turning away, and then we can eventually turn in and reguard and go into counterattacks. Okay, so just general directions of our partner from here. There's many different hand positions, different leg positions, different hip positions. But in general, she can play a game where she either chases my head and shoulders with her hips, like so, whether it be here, or whether she sits her hips through, like so. Or she can play a game where she chases my hips, and from here she circles towards my hips, so that now I can't point my knees towards her and look to go into our classical and generic reguards and counterattacks. So we have to be able to deal with both of these, and we're going to look at how to do so in the following clips. All right, so when we're talking about recovering from side control, assuming I can point my knees towards my partner, if you can lock a side guard, you've won the game. You're out. Okay, unless your partner is highly, highly advanced and unlocks the hands and makes a transition to situations where she's out of side control and she unlocks her hands and she makes adjustments. Assuming she keeps her hands locked, there's no way your partner can threaten you, and you're always going to be able to recover. All right. So now, what is a side guard? I'm sure many of you have seen this in other instructionals, but assuming you haven't, a side guard is a near knee and elbow connection, like so, that form a V between my knee and my elbow. If at any point my partner has me in a side control, and I can connect knee and elbow, like so, and form this V and the structure between myself and my partner, she can no longer attack me. You have won the game, and I know it doesn't look like it because their hands are still locked, but you are 100% in the driver's seat from here, okay? When she goes to attack you in any way, if she unlocks her hands, the second she unlocks her hands to switch to a Kimura or move position, the second she unlocks her hands, I just take the inside position back. So now she's forced to a position where she has to keep her hands locked. And as she goes to keep her hands locked, I can incrementally fight my way back to inside position, whether it be here, whether it be here. And from here, there's many ways that we can go, fighting our way back to the inside position, unlocking our partner's hands, and then bringing everything back to the inside at a bare minimum. Okay? So if at any point we can lock a side guard, where I get a knee and elbow connection, like so, and I form this V, and I put this wedge between myself and my partner, understand if you get here, you've won the game. Okay, you're going to be able to recover from here. Now, if I get to this position, and then for whatever reason, I'm moving around and my elbow and my knee disconnect, and she exploits that with her hip position, now you've lost the battle, and she can recover from here. Okay? But if at any point we can get to this side guard, understand how crucial this is. If you get here, you are going to escape. Okay? And from here, we can incrementally fight limbs back to the inside and get into all of our favorite reguards and counterattacks. Okay? So understand that working in side control, if we can point our knees towards our partner, get to a side guard. If we can get to a side guard, we can usually always escape. All right, so let's look at insertion points. There are key insertion points all over our partner's body that we have to be able to exploit to insert our limbs into the inside position and then go into our escapes. All right, so from side control, there are two major insertion points we're going to be looking at. One, if my partner is on top of me in side control, is a hand inside and underneath my partner's jaw like so. So the insertion point will be in the space between my partner's ear and my partner's shoulder. If she closes that window, I won't be able to insert my forehand inside, and this will cause some problems because then I won't have the hand inside to start bridging and creating space and creating my initial off balance. Okay, so from here, I take a hand and I insert it inside the space between my partner's ear and far shoulder. Okay, the next will be on my partner's hips. Okay, there's one insertion point on the hip, and I use the insertion point to insert my elbow inside my partner's hip. So my left elbow, my near elbow, can insert inside my partner's hip like so. And then from here, my knee can insert inside my partner's hip like so. And when you go to insert your hands into one of these 2/3 insertion points, you have to be very specific in the way that you do it. And we'll talk about fighting the far hand inside like so. We'll talk about inserting the near side elbow like so. And we'll talk about slipping the knee inside of our partner's hip like so. Okay? So there are 2 major insertion points we're talking about when we're looking at side control. One is at our partner's far shoulder here with the far arm, and the other is elbow inside the hip and knee inside the hip on the opposite side. Okay, so the hip insertion points are the same. You're just inserting an elbow at one and a knee at the other. If we're looking at a mounted position, like so, okay, now the main insertion point we're going to be looking at is, again, if we have hands inside like so, we can pommel hands inside of our partner's shoulders, just as we did from side control. And more importantly, when we look to go into kipping escapes, we're going to look at insertion points on our partner's tailbone. So here I have knee and tailbone connection, and from here I insert a knee to the inside position, and we can go in and start forming connections to our partner, the ashigaramis and escapes. Okay? So we're going to be looking at some key insertion points, both from side control and from mount. Now, with north-south, they're a little bit different because my partner has no control over my head. Okay, so we're working in a north-south scenario. This time, my insertion point will be right inside my partner's collarbone and shoulders, where from here, I can lift like so, and I just can insert a knee right inside my partner's collarbone and shoulder like so. So now when she goes to put pressure on me, it's a pretty easy thing to start making space, insert my second knee, and now I have all the inside position. Okay, so my partner has no control over my head this time, so the insertion point comes a little bit differently because of the change of position. Okay, from this position, I'm not inserting a knee inside of her hip or an elbow inside of her hip or a hand inside the shoulder. We're taking a knee right inside the shoulder and inside the collarbone. So now when she goes to put pressure on me, I have a knee-elbow connection, and from here we can put a second knee in and start to go into escapes. Okay, so understand that there are key insertion points all around our partner's body we have to be able to exploit for escapes. And this doesn't just go for escapes, it goes for attacks as well. We talked about this when we were talking about back attacks. We're looking to insert a hand in for a strangle. We're looking for a key insertion point, which is behind our partner's jaw, or from here we can insert a knuckle, walk the hand down, and from here walk the hand across and go in for strangles. Okay, so there are key insertion points all around our partner's body, which we have to be able to exploit both offensively and defensively. And we'll elaborate on this in terms of escapes as we move forward. All right, let's talk about ways to insert your far arm and get a hand underneath your partner's jaw. The number one way to do this, and the easiest way to do this, is to play a waiting game. And you wait for your partner to start moving, you wait for their grips to loosen, for them to start moving into mount or moving to attack your arms with kimores or moving to north-south. And as they move, you pommel a hand inside. So this is the number one way to do this. Now, if your partner's in a static position, there's ways we can force this, assuming your partner doesn't want to move. All right, so let's take a look at that. So we're going to be flattened out like so. And the number one way that we can do this is you just play with the hand in close to my partner's shoulder like so. And now, as she goes to start moving around and head comes out of position, we just pommel the hand to the inside. We take a V-grip on our partner's shoulder like so. Okay, so this is the finishing position we want to be in. Now, there's always going to be times where we feel like our partner's not moving and we have to pommel his hand to the inside position. If your partner has no connection of her ear and her shoulder, there's no reason why I can't just pommel a hand through. If I feel that there's a connection, but it's a pretty weak connection, I just put a hand in and I just give small incremental bumps. 1, 2, 3, and then my hand comes across. All right? There's always going to be a time where our partner has a strong ear to shoulder connection and her chin is up high by my shoulder. So now from here, I feel like I'm trying to insert my hand and it's just not working. All right. So a couple of great ways of doing this is by 1, bridging towards my partner, and 2, bridging away from my partner. If my shoulders are square and flat on the floor, it's going to be hard to insert my hand, okay, because the simple fact that she has good ear to shoulder connection, and my hand runs into my own chest.